If you look today to families that are generally speaking better off, there were assets that were passed to that next generation and next generation. One of those assets could be a life insurance policy, a permanent life insurance policy.
Hello and welcome to another great edition of Beyond the Hype. I'm your host, Senior VP, Executive Editor at Black Enterprise, Alfred Edmond Jr. Yes, I know I say every episode is great, but just check every episode that we recorded so far and you know that we always deliver. Listen, we're here for another great special edition of Beyond the Hype for the Money Moves That Matter series. And you always get great guests for this. This episode is sponsored by Manulife John Hancock. They're great partners. And the person we have on today is going to blow your mind because he really is that dude. Listen, we are talking about life insurance as a wealth strategy. And my guest today is just perfectly not only qualified, but amazingly enthusiastic about his work. He is Hector Martinez, head of John Hancock Insurance. He's responsible for all aspects of life insurance and sales and distribution. I could go through a whole litany of the things that he does. He has over 2 decades of experience in his space, really focusing on making people have access to insurance products that they need, understanding fintech, you just name it, and my man Hector Martinez is on it. Listen, welcome to the show, Hector.
Thank you very much, Alfred, and thank you very much for having me. I hope I live up to that introduction you just gave me. Thank you again for having me, and I hope, like you said, this episode brings the same punch that the rest of your episodes do.
Well, I'm sure it will. Just I'm going to remind our audience, definitely check out Beyond the Hype Beyond the Hype, but also Black Enterprise on YouTube. You can subscribe to see this episode, watch the replays, share it with your friends and people in your network. And see all the Black Enterprise content on demand on the Black Enterprise YouTube channel. But let's jump right in. Hector, we had a great pre-call. That's why I was so confident about singing your praises, about how much our audience is going to enjoy meeting you and talking with you. But one of the things I always like to talk about on this show, with this show and the other shows that I host, is this idea that most of us, maybe 100% of us, are not doing what we thought we would be doing when we were little kids. You didn't say, yep, what I want to be when I grow up is the head of insurance for a major financial services company, because obviously that's not what you were thinking. So I'm always interested in the journey that you took to do what you do today, and then following up with what your days look like. What do you do today? A lot of times people hear a title, people hear of a job. It's not like back in, the old days for my generation. I'm older than you are, and our parents certainly, where the things that they imagined they'd be were things they saw every day: doctor, nurse, police officer, whatever. So just talk a little bit about how you grew up and how you came to do what you do today.
Well, I appreciate the question, and I'll do my best to do it in a sort of consolidated way, because I could go on forever and we could do this over dinner. But I'll start first with the fact that my folks are first generation from the Dominican Republic. They came to the U.S. So to the point that you made, that I didn't wake up one day and say, you know what I want to be? I want to be the head of a life insurance company in the U.S. That certainly was not the direct line that I took. As a matter of fact, having been from the Dominican Republic, there was very few careers, especially since my folks never went to college. We were the first to go to college in my family. They were very limited in what we should do. We should be a doctor, we should be a lawyer, we should be an accountant, we should be a teacher. Those are the things that they sort of thought we should do. I, unlike my sister and brother, took a little bit of different tack. For 30 years, I've been in and around the world of distribution. So I started my career at ADP. I spent 10 years at ADP at a time where the turnover rate in sales for ADP was akin to those in the telecom industry at that time. There was just a lot of turnover. It was a tough job. On paper, it looked simple, but tough to do. I fell in love with the challenge, having been a college athlete, then taking sort of the things that I learned there and how to apply them into a world of sales. Found success, not immediately, but found success, and then really started to get into the idea of coaching and mentoring people. It just was something always that I enjoyed. There was a lot of people in my life that got involved early and helped me and helped change the trajectory of where I was going. So leading became something that was a straight line for me. As soon as I started managing people, I thought, boy, every day I get to come to work and influence and impact the lives of other people, that appealed to me. So maybe the line towards life insurance wasn't direct, but the line towards leadership was. As soon as I, in 1998, 99, started to take my first leadership management job, I knew that's what I wanted to do. I started at a company called Bisis in 2005 after 10 years at ADP. And Bisis was a brokerage firm that wholesaled a bunch of different life insurance. Pretty much every life insurance carrier there was, we wholesaled. That was my first introduction to what life insurance was. I fell in love with what our solutions brought to people. The thought that our solutions can help alter the trajectory for future generations because somebody loved that person or persons enough to buy life insurance so that they can help create wealth in the future should they be missing. I thought, gosh, we should bring this solution to more people. I spent 16 years at Bisis, which became Crump. And in that 16 years, I got to know many of the carriers, of which John Hancock was one. I spent 3 years at Equitable running their life business. Great people, great institution there. And then from there, had the opportunity to join John Hancock a little bit over a year ago, about a year, a little bit over a year and a month ago. Joined John Hancock to run their life insurance organization, and blessed to be here. That's my journey in a nutshell. Hopefully that helps.
No, that was very, very well done because it hits on a couple of themes that resonate with me and our audience. You know, a lot of times, again, we ask a kid what do they want to be when they grow up. I've learned to ask as someone who's also, everybody knows me, I'm super passionate about mentorship. I've been mentoring since I first got out of undergrad. I was mentoring kids that was, well, they weren't kids, they were only a few years younger than me. But I was out in the world working. I was like, let me tell you what's coming when you come out here in the world. So I've been to mentorship for that long. But a couple of things that you hit on that really resonate with me is it's not about what you want to be. And then we start thinking about job titles and careers. It's like, what is it that gets you excited? What is it that that turns you on, that gets that spark? For me, I was a gifted writer. I was identified that in preschool that I was really good with both writing and art. That was my two things all my life. But even when I became a journalist on campus at my alma mater, Rutgers University, the writing part wasn't what, yeah, great, you got a byline, you had an article. It was my first time, like you said, running a team. I ended up becoming the editor-in-chief of the paper. And this idea of motivating and figuring out what makes people tick, because what makes somebody want to do it, their reason for doing it may be different from the second person or even from you, and getting them to work together to achieve a measured goal. See points on the board, and again, you're a former. I never went as far as you did in sports, but a former, Division I college athlete. Is to be able to organize groups of people, motivate them to perform because they actually want to, not because you're making them, and then seeing results that deliver solutions for people. That's in a nutshell what my journalism career has been all about. But it wasn't until I was managing these other talented people that I was like, this is what I want to do every day.
I'll tell you what, and if you could combine the idea that you're coming into the office every day and helping change the lives and maybe enrich the lives of the people that you have the blessing to lead, and then you think to yourself that we can become an organization that joins shoulders, joins hands, joins arms to deliver a solution that actually makes a difference to people. And I mentioned that I fell in love with the solutions that life insurance were and what they and the benefits that they provided those that purchased it. And I think about what we do at John Hancock. Behind me, you see a sign that says, helping our clients live longer, healthier, better lives. When I think about combining the power of what life insurance does, and I combine it with the wellness platform that we have, it's easy to say, hey, 350 people, let's join arms and let's bring this to as many people as we possibly can. So when you believe in what you're doing and you describe the sort of the belief you had in what you and your team were doing, I think it gets a lot easier to overcome, when the wind blows east and west, because it will blow east and west in your journey north. So I get excited about what we're doing, and obviously you did the same in your first leadership and perhaps even now as well.
Yeah, actually, I tell people that it's the obstacles, the opposition, the challenge that makes it fun, even if it's stressful in the moment, even if it's challenging in the moment, because there's nothing like that feeling when you come through solving that big problem or getting past that big barrier. And there's nothing like the way it affects the people on your team when it's like we did that, and the next challenge that comes, we're even more
Hmm.
prepared and eager to do it. I tell people
Hmm.
all the time, when you get up and you know it's going to be a bad day, but you still can't wait to get to it, you know you'll pick the right the right organization, the right profession, and the right role.
Yeah, and if you believe in the outcome enough, you'll be able to overcome. You'll be able to weather the storm a lot better because the idea is giving up is not an option because we've got something to do that trumps whatever it is that's happening in front of us today. As you one of the things you asked me earlier was what does a day in the life look like in running this business? And I would imagine that if you're in leadership, it doesn't look too different than this. There's a couple of things that are sort of common in the world of leadership. I think it starts with people. I talked about people getting involved in my life that sort of became a plot in my life graph that altered the trajectory. I think it starts with the team you have. It trumps strategy. It's making sure that you're connected with the people, whether it's recognition, whether it's communicating the vision, whether it's understanding what they're doing, because they're closest to the client, they're closest to the process. So you can't make decisions as a leader that don't reflect the greater good of your associates because they're the ones that are making the input. They're the ones that are driving the solution. So it starts with people. And then the other one is clients, right? Am I in touch with the clients? Are we in touch with the clients? Do we know the people that are actually using our solutions to understand that they're landing the right way? Are there things that we could, you know, I think about real field temperature, right? It doesn't matter what the thermometer says. If it feels like 3 degrees, it's 3 degrees. It doesn't matter if the temperature says 15, right? So the real feel from the client perspective, I think, is the other piece. So clients is the second. And now as a leader, elevating yourself to say, how do I help my team get better? It's almost like if you own a position as in an equity, right? You own a company, you own a stock, and it's up 10%. You say to yourself, by itself, that's good. But what if the whole market's up 20%? How good is your 10% now, right? So understanding what's happening in the industry, I owe it to our organization to make sure that we measure ourselves not just against what we do every day, but what is happening in the industry. So industry and thought leadership is a good part of what I do and spend a lot of time, whether it's in industry meetings, whether it's advocacy, but all the way to just to think about thought leadership and staying involved that way. Strategy, right? So when you think about the things that I just talked about, how do you take the outside world and what's happening? How do you take political climate, economic climate, where the puck is going, and think about how your strategy fits into that? Are there alternatives? Are there off ramps that we should be taking, considering what the world looks like? As a leadership team, we spend a lot of time on strategy. I spend a lot of time on strategy to make sure that it works. And I would say the last piece, if you think about just professional, this is my fifth component is just execution. So as a public company and even as a private company, we want to make sure that we don't set the goals so far away that says by 2030 we want to be this, that Q3 of 2025 goes unattended.
Yes.
We've got to execute on the objectives. We always talk about here in the four walls of John Hancock, milestones missed means outcomes missed. And so we respect the milestones as we do the entire strategy because we understand that it's the sum of accomplishing those and hitting those milestones that'll help us hit. So that's sort of the day in the life, the week in the life. And I would love to tell you that they're perfect. They are not. There are weeks that I exit and I say to myself, did I win this week? I didn't win this week because of one thing or another didn't allow me to spend enough time, whether it was with the people, whether it was with the clients. But the idea of having that lens allows us to stay focused and say, we at least know what a win looks like and we try to win.
Yeah,
Yep.
that defining what a win looks like, and I imagine that's true not only for your team, but for the people that you're helping that's being served by your company. Knowing what a win looks like means really being something that 40 years ago wasn't really considered a critical element of being a professional in the financial services industry, and that is really being able to engage with people here, whether it's your team members or whether it's the people you're serving. What are their pain points? I love your analogy about field temperature. You can say what you want about what the thermometer says. It's about what your clients feel. It's about what your team feels, and even about what you feel. That in
Yep.
acknowledging, yeah, everybody's telling me this is going well, but my
Hmm.
standard is not being met, and I need to address that. So I really,
Yeah,
really love that. I think that's key to leadership when all is said and done.
I, I agree.
So let's do a deep dive in what our audience came here for, which is this idea of life insurance as a wealth strategy. From your experience, how can life insurance support this goal of creating not just wealth for your own lifetime, but this idea of multi-generational wealth, wealth that has impact beyond your own comfort level into today?
I I appreciate the question because there's sort of a sort of misconception about life insurance, and there's many, but there's a misconception about life insurance in that the way to build wealth is sort of a direct line. There's some people, if you ask my father back in the day, to say, "Hey, real estate, you've just got to invest in real estate." But the idea about sort of any financial asset is that it's not about this or that, but it's about consulting with an advisor and somebody that understands what your outcome is as a family, as an individual, and say, how do you use this and that? When is it appropriate to have this asset and this asset? And how do those things collaborate to drive and create a better potential outcome for you as an individual, for you as your family, and more importantly, give you the best possibility to achieve the outcome that you're looking for? Life insurance is one of those. When I think about life insurance, first, there are sort of two different types of life insurance, and there's more than two, but I'm just going to sort of categorize them in these two. One of them is term life insurance, and the other one is permanent life insurance. Now, the permanent one is exactly what it sounds like. Presuming you pay your premiums, you have life insurance that will be there on a permanent basis. Presuming premiums are paid, each policy works a little bit differently, but it's a permanent life insurance policy. And then there's term life insurance. And term life insurance says that for a period of time, for a term, 10 years, 5 years, 20 years, 30 years, you will have insurance. And each of them serve a different purpose, and both of them can aid in providing, again, financial security and helping to generate wealth. When I think about protection and I think about permanent for a second, one is, there were days, and maybe there's families today that own an asset. And upon them, their demise, because all of us will meet that day. Hopefully, we push that day as far out as we possibly can. But when we meet that day, are there assets we're passing along to the next generation? If you look today to families that are generally speaking better off, there were assets that were passed to that next generation and next generation. One of those assets could be a life insurance policy, a permanent life insurance policy. And again, I always talk about meeting with an advisor to ensure that that financial professional can help you balance what those look like. But permanent insurance, first and foremost, serves an opportunity to pass along an asset to the next generation that then starts to create wealth for that generation. And that family tree, I always think about the branch that extends off of that family, is now in a better position than they would have been otherwise had they not had it. I think about what that means to me as an individual. So somebody would say, well, that's great for the next generation, but what about me? Well, if I'm today working and I'm active and I'm investing, and I now know that I have a nest egg that I'm passing off to the next generation, does it not allow me and my financial professional, my advisor, to invest differently? Because I've got the security that I'm passing that asset. So it frees you up to do some things that perhaps your financial professional and your advisor wouldn't be able to do if you still had to think about passing along the best you can. And the government, United States, they recognize that life insurance is valuable in sort of planning and what that means to the future generations. And as important, that you have generations of people that don't have to count on public assistance, or whether you think about Social Security that's under pressure, you've got people that now no longer or depend on it a little bit less. So the government realizes that, and because of that, there's tax preferred treatment of life insurance when that death benefit gets paid. It's paid tax free to the beneficiary. So a long way for me to say there's a lot of application, but it's an absolute tool in the sort of way of creating wealth and creating security, almost a moat around the wealth that you're trying to gain or accumulate. On the term side, I think about, so if I've got a period of time, let's just use my children are in school age, and there might be an opportunity for them to go to college, and they've got things that they want to do. If I'm the only breadwinner, or if my wife and I, or my partner and I, are the only breadwinners, if anything happens during this next 20-year span, will my children be able to go to school? And I'm using the simplest example. Term insurance serves a purpose of covering needs that happen during a certain period of time, that should something in the unfortunate happened during that time, those that matter most don't have to alter their lifestyle or change their goals. At least from that perspective, they have the opportunity that they would have had if I was still around. So it's I've used a few simple illustrations, but there's so many applications in how this can free us up to create wealth for our future and enhance our ability to create wealth for ourselves as well. I didn't even tap into the cash value of life insurance, which is another incredible, powerful tool as well. But yeah, those are the sort of things that I think about when I think about it being a financial asset that should be leveraged as a this and that, not a this or that.
You hit on a couple of really good points. One is this idea of being able to pass on assets. There are so many generations of families where there was some success, some wealth built up, and then because of lack of planning or whatever, that wealth is not protected, and then the next generation is starting from zero all over again. And you see this kind of multi-generational, basically treading water from generation to generation because maybe people haven't really taken advantage, or maybe they didn't even know about these types of strategies, which is why I'm glad I have you on the show. But the other thing that really resonates with me, not just with you, again, we had our pre-call, but with your entire organization, is this connection between health and wealth. And health is a form of wealth. And you and I have that in common, that you say we're trying to extend that life as long as we can and live as well as we can, be as productive as we can. This term lifespan being about longevity, and health span being how long you can be healthy and productive during the course of your life. And John Hancock takes a unique approach to connecting wellness with protection and accumulation of wealth that I think is really valuable to our audience and valuable to me personally, because I also oversee the Black Enterprise Health as Wealth platform for that reason. Yes, it's a lifestyle question. Yes, it's great if you look nice in a bathing suit this summer. Yes, all that is great, but ultimately we're talking about preserving wealth and keeping your cost of staying alive as low as possible, but also being as productive as possible during the course of your life, whether you're a professional or entrepreneur, you're an investor, all of the above, because it takes time to build wealth, and it takes tools like insurance to protect it once it's built. To talk about that connection at your company, and even how you lead between wellness with financial protection.
I appreciate the question, and Alfred, I'm smiling because you cut me because I'm currently injured, so I'm not able to run the way that I typically like to run. So as you talked about looking good in a bathing suit, I'm just excited the summer's going away because it's not been my best workout summer. But the question is a good one. 10 years ago, we just celebrated our 10th year of what we call John Hancock Vitality. And when I talked to our CEO, Brooks Tingle, one of the reasons I was so excited to join John Hancock is what you just described, the combination of not just the benefits of life insurance, but the idea that we're going to do it in a different way. See, life insurance is one of those products that in concept is such a honorable thing to do. It shows, it's like the manifestation of love, right? To pass along something to the next generation. But the reality is it's not great for the people that own it, right? Because it only works when you're not around. So what if we were able to flip that and say, let's make life insurance about the living? And so 10 years ago, we noticed that there was lifestyle diseases. You think about cardiac cancer. The CDC speaks to the fact that it's about activities. It's about actions taken or not taking. It's the number of steps that people take. It's seeing a doctor on a consistent basis. These are activities that could help shed or at least help avoid some of those or postpone some of those lifestyle diseases. And one of the things we thought about is like, who besides the people that love you most care about you living longer? There's a shared value between a life insurance company and you as the insured. You would love to live longer. You'd love to live healthier. You'd love to live better. Well, so does your life insurance company, right? We'd love for you to do those same things. So we align those two things. Our client on John Hancock Vitality, so those that own a life insurance policy with John Hancock Vitality, take about 2 times the amount of steps that the normal person of that age takes. And that's going to make a difference. And it's already making a difference in the longevity in our in-force block. So now we're not just hoping you live better, healthier, but we're helping you live better. In 2022, we said, let's go beyond that dynamic engagement and let's talk about prevention. So we went from dynamic engagement to prevention to make this holistic platform that says, if you're a John Hancock client, you're not only going to get the benefits of life insurance, but we're going to do everything we can to postpone that day that will inevitably meet us all. But we're going to do our best to help postpone it so that you can live longer, healthier, better. And the longer you're on the planet, the more the people that love you most get to enjoy your time as well.
That really resonates with me because I'm someone who had a prostate cancer experience now almost 16 years ago. Sometimes I forget it ever happened because I was never symptomatic. The ultimate surgery was totally successful. But the key to all of that was early detection. I mean, it got caught so early that it wasn't a non-issue. It was still cancer in my body.
Yeah.
But from an experiential standpoint, no illness, no pain, no suffering, easy to solve the problem, in part because I was so healthy that my surgeon was like, trust me, this is not going to be, a big deal. We caught it early. It's a almost imperceptible amount. And because I was committed to screening in my case, even in my early 30s,
That's incredible.
because before that, I was the guy that only went to get a physical when I was going out for a sport. Like if I didn't get a doctor's permission to play, I didn't really care. But to your point about legacy, and you start thinking about future generations, at the time that I turned my whole attitude around about prevention was when my third child was born, my first son. He was an infant, and I just wanted to be able to be healthy enough to play basketball in the driveway with him when he got old enough to do that. And that started me on a health journey that paid off, 15 years later when they was like, we found something, it's probably nothing, but get it checked out. So your whole narrative about it's not, speaking to someone who's really serious about health and fitness, it's not that you never have an injury. You're talking about you're a athlete, you're recovering from an injury. It's that you can recover with minimal damage to the quality of your life and
Hmm.
minimal damage to your financial health, because obviously the healthier you are, all those things go together. So again, I'm so excited about the connection that your company has made, and you obviously make both professionally and personally, that these two things go hand in hand. And you're right. If anybody wants you to live long and healthy, it's your life insurance.
Yeah. They're second to your family. Most families,
Yeah.
second to most families, but yeah, no, we have there's a shared value there for sure. A testament to you on the early cancer detection. I think it's one of those things. I have two things you made me think about. But the first is about that sort of early cancer detection. I think a lot of people have a misconception that when you talk about John Hancock Vitality, that sounds incredible, and boy, the marathon runners must really love that. The weightlifters must really love that. And they do, right? They do. But the fact is, it meets you where you are. If you were a person that never saw the doctor unless you defensively had to go see the doctor, now all of a sudden, because of vitality and the scoring of the points, you're now seeing your doctor and getting your annual physical.
Yes.
You've already started to take steps that have improved your longevity. If you all of a sudden had an Apple Watch because you get an Apple Watch and it tracks your steps, and you now start taking 1.5 times more steps than you ever did before, you now just took a step to longevity. It's not just for the athletes. It's not just for the marathon runners. It's not just for the health nuts. It meets you where you are. And if you're better than you were yesterday, you took a step towards increasing your longevity. And the last piece that you made me think about was, as you talked about playing basketball with your son. Earlier, I talked about outcomes. If the outcome matters enough, then you're willing to withstand the things that you have to do. And all of a sudden, the playing basketball means I'm going to eat a little differently. The playing basketball means I'm going to exercise a little bit differently. That outcome. And so I think many of us, as we age or as we have children or otherwise, we just say to ourselves, hey, this stuff matters. Let's start doing things a little bit differently.
Yeah, and to draw back to me having that recognition in my early 30s, I think that's a perfect time to pivot to this idea that whether you're investing in your health or you're investing in wealth, your biggest, best asset is time. Meaning, the earlier you start on both of those tracks, the better, the more profitable, the more productive, the bigger return on investment. And so I'm constantly talking to younger people, and I'll say people who are, let's say, in their 20s and 30s, that I didn't wake up. I'm 65 now, looking like this and feeling like this at 65.
Yeah.
It started when I was in my early 30s. Ideally, it could have and should have started earlier. So I really want you to talk about that in the context of helping people to understand that life insurance is not just something you kick down the road to later in life. That if you're a younger person, you're in the early stages of your career, maybe you're only a couple years out of college, and if you can do it earlier, the earlier you start, the better off you are and the bigger return on investment, both from a health and a wealth standpoint down the road. I mean, what do you say when you talk to such, that generation of young professional or young entrepreneur to make sure they understand that this is something that's very relevant to their goals?
Well, I think a couple of things. So, first of all, you mentioned the earlier you start, the better off that you are. And that's absolutely the case. Just like any other investment, the earlier that you start with life insurance, a couple of things. I mentioned earlier that when you partner with financial professional and advisor, and you've got your future piece secured, and I use the permanent life insurance as an example, it allows you to invest a little bit differently. And the longer you're allowed to invest a little bit differently, the greater likelihood you have of achieving greater success or accumulating more wealth, et cetera. So I do think the earlier you allow yourself that freedom, sort of that net under you that then says I can go do this, then you start to figure that out. Plus, I you, financial planning is not a one and done, right? Who I was at 25 years old is not who I am at 52 years old. Situations change, lives change, outcome desired changes. So the earlier you start, the more that reflects who you are that then, and the more you have to edit as you start to age and your life stages start to change. So I would say starting early provides the greater ability for you to sort of force multiply the ability to grow your assets. There's a couple of things I mentioned earlier. Cash value and life insurance. It works very similar to the way that investing in a stock or a mutual fund does. Not It's not exact, but it does work very similar. There are policies like whether it's a variable universal life that have index sleeves within them or fund options within them that again act very similar to a mutual fund. The earlier you do that, the better chance you have of those things accumulating assets. And I also think the earlier you make the decision to get insurance, again, it allows your professional to have that flexibility. I would just the last piece I would say is that the world is getting a lot more complex. So if you think about whether it's Social Security, whether it's the debt that continues to rise in this country, at some point, the things that matter. Well, at some point, it's happening today, but there's going to have to be a way that the government raises revenue. That's going to be whether it's taxes or something else that likely will have an impact on the way we live our lives. If you have an opportunity to have a tax preferred way to access cash, to pass assets along to the next generation that are tax protected, you put yourself in a position to really truly um, uh, manage through what some of these uncertainties that those that don't do the planning won't be able to do. And life insurance plays a critical role in that, especially in the tax preferred treatment of it.
Yeah, what we're talking about in a nutshell is legacy building, is what you leave that people can build on, not just physically and materially, but emotionally. I mean, the ultimate freedom is about having options.
Yeah.
And again, both with financial planning and with health, the later you wait, the later you catch the issue, or the later you reach a certain threshold, the fewer options you have to deal with it. And I look back on, I learned so much from my own past mistakes and the opportunities that because I was young, I was like, I don't have to worry about that. I don't have to worry about that yet. And I tell young people, there's nothing like knowing that certain things are covered so you can kind of afford to make mistakes. You can afford to
Hmm.
take risks. You can afford to do certain things because you basically built your own safety net in place. And you're right. We're living in an era where the safety net that used to be provided for our parents and grandparents used to be provided by government and large corporations. People lived in company towns. And it's like, you just do your work, keep your nose clean. We'll protect you and your family. Now we live in an age where some of those protections either have changed or been eliminated. And I'm not even saying that's all a bad thing, but more of it is now put into our hands as an individual, to be able to say, I'm going to do these things and put these things in place. And to your point, the earlier you start, the easier it is, the more beneficial it is in the long run, and the more options you'll have as you go through the changes in life that will challenge you. Do I take that job? Do I switch careers? Do I start that business? how am I going to support my kids in their ambitions? And if you have a lot of options, that's what real wealth is all about. I mean, we may measure it by bank accounts and credit scores and net worth, but it's when somebody gets up and says, I have a lot of options, and if it doesn't work out, I'm good. I'm covered because the things that matter are protected.
I'll tell you, there's inflation is real, right? So today's dollar is not the same as tomorrow's dollar, and so the idea of having something that allows you to outpace that, or at least have something that puts you in a position that in the future you could tap it in a tax preferred way, it just puts you in a better position. So that's just one example. My father's another example. Before he knew anything about insurance, he thought to himself, "Hey, let me get this insurance in order to protect my family." His first home, he was able to tap in. It wasn't the entire down payment, but he was able to get some money out of his life insurance policy to fund part of that down payment. And then when you pay yourself back, when you start paying that loan back, you're paying into your own insurance product. So it could enhance the performance of the policy instead of paying, 12, 15% at a bank at that time. He's paying it to his life insurance company. And again, I suspect when he bought it, it wasn't really about the house. It was about protecting the family and then being able to tap into it. You talked about options. That's options.
So I feel like you're a living, breathing representation of the answer to the question I'm about to ask you. But how do you make financial topics like life insurance feel more approachable and to empower people to actually take action? You talked about earlier on in the show, kind of the principles that you lead by, and the one that resonates with me all the time because, well, I used to say it was my weak spot. What I'll say is not my strength. My strength is ideation. Hector, I got a billion ideas. How many of them do I act on? I'm like, man, if I just act on 10% of them, because I'm an ideation guy. I like that. I like thoughts and ideas. And
Yeah.
I have a deep respect. And many of the people I mentor, I have a nickname for them. I call them the executioners. And
Hmm.
my oldest daughter is an executioner. She has the
Hmm.
idea, she thinks about it, she does it. It either works or it doesn't work. And even if it doesn't work, she says, oh, but I learned something from this. I'm going to execute and this idea execution. And one of the challenges that I hear a lot from financial professionals or financial advisors is they will work with the client to come up with a great plan, and everybody buys in, and then there's no execution for a lot of reasons. I mean, that we could do a whole no separate show on why people don't do what they know is good for them, or what they say they want to do. So, what do you do to kind of empower people to take action, to understand that execution really is where the rubber hits the road when all is said and done.
So my son asked me a very similar question, not about life insurance itself, but when I first started in sales, he's like, "You really believe in what you're selling?" I'm like, "I have to. I have to, because if I didn't, it'd be hard for me to do this, right?" So I think it starts with what you and I were talking about earlier. If the outcome is worth it, you're willing to do the things that you have to do to get it done. And so I think the first thing is I'm relentless about always speaking, whether it's my friends, whether it's in public, it's what we're doing today. Hopefully somebody on this call says, I don't know exactly what they're talking about, but I need to learn more about it. I try to create an environment where we don't have to know all the answers, but we've got to be curious enough about how is this going to help me arrive at my outcome. I try to inspire people to define what the future looks like. It's not good enough to say I want to retire. Paint retirement. What does that look like for you? Does that mean a lot of travel? Does that mean sitting at home? Does that mean playing golf? Does that mean playing basketball? What does retirement mean to you? What age does that look like? What are you doing with your partner? How does that like so once you start to define that outcome, it becomes real. And then you start to insert, well, what are the best ways for us to do today with you, Hector, Alfred? The things we could do today and make that outcome real, right? How do we do that today? Because that what we were just about to do in buying that beach home maybe isn't the best thing to do as it relates to this outcome. And now you start to negotiate the things you need to do, the assets you need to own, the sequence with which you own them. I think those are the things I like to do. So I try to think about outcomes. I do it myself. Is this getting me a step closer to the outcome? And gosh, if the outcome is worth it, if it's clear enough, if I could taste it, if I could visualize it, and I want it more than anything else, then I'm willing to learn about whatever the assets are. Even if I said I don't believe in life insurance, if it gets me closer to the outcome, I'm getting it. And so I try to inspire people to understand, to really understand where they're trying to go. And I try not to profess that I know the answers because I don't. What I would say is everybody should engage with somebody that understands their financial position so that they can then take advantage of the this and that weave those together in the right sequence to get them not just protected, but optimize their chances of getting to that outcome. And so, if anybody leaves with anything today, I hope it's that they should just go speak to somebody that can help them navigate through that world, clarify that outcome, and do what it takes to position themselves. It won't guarantee it, but you optimize your chances.
I tell myself every day, and I tell others that I've influence over, if you can find your why, you will find your way. And
Mm,
clearly
like that.
defining your goal beyond a term like retirement, which means different things to different people. I was once in a career development workshop, and the leader asked each of us to picture a lemon in our heads, but not saying it, just picture it in our heads. And then she went around the room and asked people to describe what they had in their heads. And there were people that had not the fruit, but the car that you bought that, that you should have bought. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
and she was making the point, you got to go beyond terms like, I want to just retire or I want a good
Hmm.
retirement. And you got to say, no, what does that look like? You said it. What is that goal? And what happens
Yeah.
is if you focus on a very clear picture of the goal and you let that your future goal kind of drive your current decisions, there'll be a lot of things that look like the right thing to do, but
Hmm.
your goal is not the right thing to do for the future. And I'll give you a sports analogy. Um, People say, well, the point of playing a game like football is to score the most points that you can. And I say, no, the goal is to win the game. Yes.
Yeah.
Sometimes you don't want them to, all you want to do is not let them score more than you. It's
Yeah.
better to
Yeah.
win a
Yeah. Yeah.
game 9-7 than to lose a game, 50-45. And
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
so it's like, so you got to think about, don't get confused about some of the short term conventional wisdom outcomes about what a win looks like. And then end up reaching that goal without winning at all. And I find that in financial planning, there's a lot of that because people too often, especially in the age of social media, start defining what a win looks like based on what they see other people do or what the other people talked about that has
Hmm.
no resemblance to the outcome you're trying to achieve in the future.
It's funny. So this nothing to do with the podcast, but you just reminded me, and it's relevant. I remember I coached young men in football. I just and I was coaching the defense, and I used to, at the beginning of the season. I'm like, hey, has any team lost after they scored 20 points? I'm like, yeah, a lot of teams lose when they score 20 points. I'm like, has any team lost when they scored 45 points? I'm like, yeah. How about 40? How about 50? Yeah. 70? Yeah. I'm like, has any team lost when they gave up 0 points? They're all like, no. I'm like, so here's what we're going to do on defense. We're going to give up zero. So the whole point is that the goal is to win the game. But as you just described it, I believe in life insurance. I think life insurance plays a role in building wealth. I believe it plays a role in the future generations. But what I really believe in is that when you define the outcome, when you define what you want, when you define your why, every asset can play a role. And the sequence with when you get them, the type of product that you get, the sort of way you weave that together optimizes your chances to get that outcome. And I think protection is a big piece of that. But I certainly think that's again, it's about defining that why and winning. It's not do you own a life insurance product? Is am I winning? Am I optimized to win?
And as you said earlier, it's not a one time set it and forget it project, meaning that you said earlier, your why when you're 25 and you're single with no kids might be very different than when you're 35 and you're married with 2 or 3 kids. So this idea that in partnership with, for example, a good financial advisor and others, you want to constantly be assessing, is my why the same? Do I need to adjust what I
Hmm.
really want? What I thought I wanted when I was 25 is very, very, very different than what I wanted
Yeah.
10 years later, 15 years, 20 years later. So this idea, this is an ongoing conversation you have with yourself and trusted personal and professional team members, if you will, changes.
And this idea around self-reliance, like as a family, as an individual, to be reliant on yourself, there's something about that that if we could start to do that, all of a sudden our country gets stronger. If you've got a multitude of people, millions and millions of people. Today we have 100 million plus of underinsured or uninsured people. What if that was just a flip and we had people that were self-reliant, right? And what might that look like as a country? I mean, we're already an incredible country with and tremendously powerful, but what would it look like if the future was self-reliant? There's nothing more empowering than knowing that you've got it taken care of and that you've got a plan that again is not guaranteed, but is certainly going to optimize your chance of achieving what you want.
Well, listen, as you come down to the home stretch of this conversation, And again, I got a head start over the audience because we talk. But I'm going to say this: it is always so important, and I'll say for myself, gratifying and motivating when my personal lifestyle and values does not conflict with what I do to make a living with my professional life. And I can say that one of the biggest blessings of my career is it's never been those two things have never been in conflict. And if anything, my lifelong journey for optimal health, as you said, feeds into what I do as a champion of success at Black enterprise because it all goes together. And so what I
Mm-hmm.
love, you're a John Hancock Vitality customer, and there's nothing like the person who is selling you on an idea or a product or service. Like I believe it because I use it myself, and you can look. I can look at your vitality. It's very apparent. But talk to me about how you use the program. You're a former athlete, but you're still a current athlete. You're just playing a different sport. Um, so this is not something that's just, yeah, this is great. You should do it, but I don't do it. It's no, I believe in this enough not only to sell it, but to apply it to my own life. And I tell people, I'm going to be your human experiment. So you don't have to hear me tell you the outcome of the choices that I make. You can see those outcomes, and I'm demonstrating that in real time by putting my own decisions and life and goals on the line.
Yeah, so it started 10 years ago for me. I was a client of John Hancock. I mentioned I was at Crump and we distributed to advisors. We would bring multitude of choices to the advisors around what products they would have available based on the need that they were trying to solve, this problem they were trying to solve. John Hancock was one of the options. They were one of our best partners at the time. When they came out with Vitality, to the point my son was trying to make when he asked me the question, I have to believe in what we're saying, right? So if I'm going to bring this to clients, I thought I should at least know what it is. So my wife and I both got it. And so what it's changed for me. I was not too different than what you just described. Exercise was always part of my world. Maybe not to the degree that it is today. Maybe I didn't score points on it every single day the way that I do today, but it created this sort of jovial competition between my wife and I. Like she would say to me, "How many steps did you have today?" And like so, we would be competing against that. So it created this sort of environment where we were literally enjoying the competition that we had amongst each other around just driving wellness. I used to never go. I mean, I would defensively go to the doctor, not too differently than you. My wife today is waiting for us to like. It's time for us to go to the because even the dentist, and people may not realize this. If you go to the dentist, it reduces inflammation. Reducing inflammation can help your brain health. I mean, that's crazy stuff. So, like the amount of things that we're now focused on as a family that we weren't focused on before. So those two things. When the preventative health stuff came out, when Grail came out, the ability to do a full body scan to see what the things are going on, the lipid profile where you have 104 or 14 biomarkers now instead of just triglycerides and LDLs and HDLs. So we take advantage of all of that. And I have I again I don't guarantee nothing guarantees you anything, but it feels good when you're taking the steps to at least control the controllables. And my wife and I feel like we're controlling the controllables, and we talk to everyone we can about it. We tell everyone because even if they don't use John Hancock Vitality, think about what the outcome is and what you can do now to optimize yourself so that when you want to swing a golf club like you did when you were 30, you can do it. Right. So the, all of a sudden, people might make some changes just because that matters enough to them. So it's just changed the way we look at it. Workouts became more than just how we look, it became are we putting ourselves in a position to live longer, healthier, and better? And so we're enjoying the journey. My wife beats me every year. I should tell everybody she gets to platinum way before I do. She's just a lot better at it than I am. But yeah, so it's been incredible.
Yeah, I tell people again because well, to some degree professionally because of the Black Enterprise Health and Wealth platform, but for me personally, I'm a big evangelist of you're more likely to do something that you think you don't want to do when you consider the rewards of doing it than you are when someone tells you what will happen if you don't do it. So there's negative motivators, there's positive motivators, and I'm old enough now to see working out, getting my steps in, getting good sleep, um, all the things, and say that it's not something I have to do; it's something I get to do. I
Yeah.
get to work out. I get to get a lot of healthy steps in. And like you said, it goes from being a chore to being a joy, and you're doing it with your wife. You're not only investing in your individual lives and health, but you're talking about being able to tell that story, or at least increase the odds one day. They're like, grandpa and grandma are never home.
Yeah.
They're out having fun. They're doing what they do. They're able, they're mobile,
Yeah.
they're pain
Hmm.
free, minimal, if any, prescription drugs. And I'm at that threshold as a 60-plus-year-old of being very grateful for choices that I made when I was in my early 30s. That's making the experience of just getting up every day
Hmm.
just a
Yeah.
wonderful experience, and the things that I'm capable of doing, that makes me feel like, listen, I'll be perfectly honest, Hector. I am healthier now than I was 30 years ago. And it
I
wasn't
am
like I
too.
was falling apart 30 years ago, but I'm in a
Yeah.
much better shape mentally, brain health, all those things are connected, of course. And I tell younger people all the time, you will be so happy if you just start taking these steps. And it's never too late, but the earlier the better. And again, that's the same thing with your financial journaling and things like life insurance. Listen, you and I, we could do this for another hour. Both of us have a lot to share and like to talk. But let me wrap this up by just saying, our audience always knows you're not going to learn everything you need to learn by listening to a podcast or watching a podcast for a half hour, an hour. The goal is to get people to take a step and to continue the conversation. Um, how can our audience, if they wanted to, follow what you do? It could be as simple as just following you on LinkedIn. What's the best way for our audience to stay connected to you and continue to learn from you?
Actually, you hit it right there. We're very active. I'm very active on
Mm.
LinkedIn. John Hancock is overall, so I would follow John Hancock, but I would also myself on LinkedIn, and I'm very responsive. So if I'm traveling, I'm always on it because there are times that there's people that don't have my email or my phone, and that's just a way to do it. So I would say just tune into there. I do my very best to share anything that I hear. And it's not just John Hancock related. We are all about longevity. It doesn't matter where it's coming from. If it's good for people living longer, healthier, better, we're all about it. So I would say LinkedIn is the way to do it, and stay curious. I mean, there's so much to learn. We're just at the beginning stages for us. I think the future is even brighter than it is today. And maybe 10 years from now we'll be talking about not just early prevention, but avoiding it overall. So.
Yeah, that stay curious message, which I hear repeatedly from people who have experienced long-term success in practically any arena of endeavor. And that word staying curious, which really I tell people the day you stop living, even if you don't die, is the day you decide you have nothing more to learn. That you have no
Mhm.
more desire to learn. That doesn't mean you could live another 30 years, but you stop living that day when you said, I don't need to learn anymore. And so a big part of my journey is, again, is someone that even if I live another 40 years, I'm in the last half of my life. Is like I stay curious. I want to know. Here's another reason why that's important. Um, and I talk about I began competing as a natural bodybuilding competitor in my late 30s. And I look back what I thought we knew about health and fitness, 30 years ago, and what we've just learned in the last 10 years. I mean, the information is better, it's more accessible, and I look
Mhm.
at people who are in their 30s and 40s, I'm like, "You guys are in a position to have a ball if you stay curious and take advantage and know that things that were considered sacrosanct truths 10 years ago or 20 years ago, then if somebody's gonna say, "Well, actually, that's not it. This is it." Uh,
Yeah.
and I just think the potential for that, no matter what age you are, can really be realized if you're just willing to continue to learn, seek information, take steps. Don't worry about what you did that you thought was right in the past that turned out was not to be a great thing. Focus on now and make every next step the better step. So listen, Hector, I really, really, I mean, I knew I would enjoyed having you. Thank you so much for being my guest on this edition of Beyond the Hype.
Thank you so much, Alfred. It was great to meet you. Great to spend time with you, and I hope this achieved the desired goal. And I hope that everybody on this call left a little bit more curious about not just life insurance, but what all of it together can do, including that wellness conversation that we had. I think is as important as anything else. Because if nothing else, who doesn't want to live longer, healthier, and better?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Listen, everybody, I promised, I delivered. Another great edition of Beyond the Hype. This edition of Beyond the Hype is brought to you by our friends at Manulife John Hancock. If you want to catch this and listen to it again, or you want your friends and associates to get the replay, you can see it on all Black Enterprise social platforms, X, LinkedIn, Facebook, of course, YouTube, where our YouTube channel. You can watch this show, other episodes of Beyond the Hype, as well as our other shows, Sisters Inc., The New Norm. Our whole array of premium content at Black Enterprise can be found at Black Enterprise on YouTube, as well as at blackenterprise.com, the dedicated Beyond the Hype channel, which shows all the recent episodes of the show. Listen, thank you for joining us. I'm Alfred Edmond Jr., Senior VP, Executive Editor of Black Enterprise. This has been another great edition of Beyond the Hype. Please take care, be well, take action, execute, even if it's a little thing, and we will see you next time.
Doubly honored to receive the Earl Graves Senior Vanguard Award, named after Bee's founder. Mr. Graves was always a guiding light for me and many others. He always had advice, a kind word, and even a playful jab for me.
Coming here lifts my spirits because I know that no matter what happens around us, I think we have a chance to do some great things.
Networking is extremely important.
This is a conference I definitely will look forward to coming to.
Excellence is the base. That's the base. The goal is exceptionalism.
Anybody that is a business person needs to be here.
For more than 5 decades, we've had your back. Beyond the Hype and Black Enterprise have everything you need to elevate your excellence.